Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And Skyrim is a place with more than enough opportunities for adventure. There's dragons to be slain, dungeons to be cleared, and bandits to get killed. However, despite strong ambitions, not everyone is always exactly up to the challenge when it comes to their abilities or competence at adventuring. And as a result, the tundras of Skyrim have claimed the lives of many once confident fortune hunters and would-be heroes. So today, in memory of them, we'll be taking a look at 5 more unlucky adventurers in The Elder Scrolls V. Our first spot actually goes to a handful of adventurers, rather than just one. Southwest of Gallows Rock in Eastmarch, you can find Cradle Crush Rock, a small giant's camp with a single giant inhabiting it. Its name may seem a bit mysterious at first. However, a brief inspection of the camp's western side explains it rather well. A large boulder lies wedged in between some broken trees, but just underneath it are the skeletal remains of quite a few fallen people, protruding from the rock's base. Their blood stained into the ground. More than just a single corpse, but instead, almost an entire group of people seem to have been crushed by this behemoth of a rock. Furthermore, if that's not horrifying enough, the body of an alchemist or necromancer can also be found near the bonfire. He's not flattened by any objects, but he does lie in a blood splatter, suggesting he was killed by some large blunt force object. The obvious culprit behind these gruesome killings is the lone giant that guards the camp. He could have killed the mage with his club and then hurled the stone at that group of people, though that would require quite a bit of strength, even for something his size. Regardless, at least the mystery of why it's called Cradle Crush Camp seems to have been solved for now. Coming in at number 2, fur and pelt trapping have always been lucrative business ideas, both in Skyrim and the real world. However, unfortunately, a couple of pelt hunters in Falkreath must have bitten off a little bit more than they could chew. North of Haldir's Cairn, the player can find a small abandoned campsite. No one's here, but it's clear whoever left it intended to come back, with the tent still up and many belongings still dotting the area. On top of a small box lies a notebook, titled Hunter's Journal, and it provides some context behind what we're seeing. It reads, quote, "Tracked down a small den of bears today. Their pelts are in fine condition and should fetch a good price. Going to set up camp for the night and kill the beasts in the morning. Hopefully we can get by on the few arrows we have left, or I may have to fall back on my blade." End quote. Well, seeing as no one's been here for some time, it doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to figure out that hunt probably didn't go as the hunters were planning. And if you decide to just head a little ways southwest of the campsite, our theory will be confirmed. Not a few meters away from the hunter's encampment is a small bear den that contains the corpses of 2, you guessed it, hunters, as well as 2 very much alive grizzly bears, watching over their kills. A sword also lies on the ground with their bodies, suggesting that one of the hunters did in fact have to fall back on their blade. And, well, that went about as well as you would expect a melee to go with a 2-ton grizzly bear. For a third spot, while we're still talking about wild animals murdering people to death, history is littered with great and heroic last stands. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Spartans at the Alamo. Wait a minute, I got that mixed up in my script. You get the point. There's been more than a few dramatic fights to the death. Well, just east of Ragnvold in the Reach, we can find what's left over from such a battle. Here sits the bloodied remains of a dead orcish bandit. With his axe drawn slumped over a chest, he was no doubt defending. Next to his corpse are also the bodies of 2 wolves, also lying in their own pools of blood. This poor orc must have found himself cornered by 2 wild animals that hadn't eaten in some time, but he wasn't ready to abandon his treasure haul, and paid the price for it. Now, in fairness, when you consider that this man is a bandit, and therefore likely stole much of the treasure, his tale becomes a little less heroic sounding. But hey, I'm not here to judge. Getting close to the end here at number 4, southeast of Winterhold and west of the wreck of the Pride of Tel Vas, is a small altar, and a dead mage named Rundi who sits in the center of it all. At first, this whole scene seems to be a bit puzzling. There are some ice runes around the altar, so they could have killed the mage. However, at the center of the altar is Rundi's dagger. So he had to have set this whole area up, or at least walked around it for a while, making it unlikely that he accidentally killed himself with one of his traps. Right? Well, my voice cracks aside, what you may not know is that Rundi actually has quite the backstory. You see, he was supposed to be part of a now-cut College of Winterhold quest called The Lost Apprentices, where the player would be tasked with tracking down the bodies of a handful of missing college students. The quest seems to have been quite close to completion, as a look in the creation kit implies. However, Bethesda, for whatever reason, decided to not fully implement it. That said, they still left behind the bodies of many of those students, including Rundi's. So what was he doing out there? What was Bethesda's plan for him, and what killed him? Well, thankfully, alongside the bodies, Bethesda also left behind a little bit of dialogue associated with the cut quest. Particularly, the conversation you would have with Finis Gistor leading up to it. If you ask the college professor about the missing apprentices, he will mention Rundi's name and say the following.
And then there's Borvir and Rundi, twins, though they rarely agreed on anything. Those two boys were obsessed with mead, convinced they could concoct something to compete with Honningbrew. Something about using frost magic to chill the mead for a certain period of time. I felt it was a waste, but the Archmage let them proceed.
So it would seem that our friend did in fact accidentally kill himself out of sheer incompetence while trying to master the art of cooling mead. His brother, Borvir, that Finis mentions body, can also be found, lying near Journeyman's Nook, though it's fairly uninteresting, and seems like he just dropped dead for no reason. And finally, last on our list, cats are known for their ability to always land on their feet, and even if they don't, they still have 8 other lives to spare, should they suffer a great fall. Well, sadly, it would look as though the same is not always true for the Khajiit of Skyrim. At least, not for all of them. At the base of a waterfall's cliff, just below the bandit cave Broken Helm Hollow, is a dead Khajiit, lying next to his coin purse. Now, with a literal waterfall above him, it seems clear how he died. But in case you have any suspicion that this feline took a bit of a tumble, looking above the waterfall itself, on the cliff it runs down, you can even find a small trail of gold coins, as well as a sword leading downstream. So the Khajiit must have lost his balance somewhere down the line and sort of went with gravity. Now, what caused this man to start falling down the waterfall in the first place is left to our imaginations. However, it's worth pointing out that this stream is just below Broken Helm Hollow, that bandit cave we mentioned earlier. So it's possible the cat had just stolen some gold from there and was running out, before being pushed. Either that, or he had a little too much of that mead that Rundi was trying to chill earlier. But with that, we are going to wrap up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Which tale on this list was your personal favorite? And have you ever come across the remains of someone who seemed to die a bit heroically? Leave a comment down below. As always, likes are very much appreciated, and hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.